Are you sitting around waiting for some godlike AI to arrive? Or are you ready right now to own the exact infrastructure that can multiply your daily output by 400 times? Think about it. If you don't build this, is your entire job just going to become a skill file owned by someone else? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're extracting the core logic from Y Combinator's Garry Tan. No fluff, just the hardcore, raw architecture of personal AGI. To really wrap our heads around this monumental shift, we're going to look at a pretty intense historical parallel that Tan draws. We're going all the way back to the 17th century to talk about the ultimate cancellation of a philosopher named Baruch Spinoza. His rebellion maps perfectly to the divide we're seeing right now, the difference between a god in some remote massive data center versus the terminal window running locally on your own laptop.
The details on this timeline are just staggering. Back in 1656 in Amsterdam, Spinoza was only 23 years old when he was excommunicated with a permanent curse for his radical ideas. Total deletion from his community. But before they cursed him, they actually offered him a massive 1,000 guilder bribe to just keep quiet and stop building. Well, he refused. Instead, he spent his days in the 1660s literally grinding lenses to help humans see further, building actual optical instruments, and then posthumously shipped his most dangerous ideas in 1677.
Spinoza actually had a very specific word for the engine that kept him going despite being totally canceled. He called it conatus. It's defined as the innate striving in every living thing to keep going and to increase its power to act. Tan's core argument here is that modern AI tools, when you actually architect them correctly, are simply the most powerful lenses ever created to amplify this exact innate human striving. They are cognitive lenses. And listen to the specific heresy that got Spinoza canceled in the first place. He wrote, "God is not a king on a throne. God is spread through everything that exists." If we interrogate Tan's framework, it reveals we're making the exact same mistake with AI today. We're all staring at the sky, waiting for a singular, godlike artificial general intelligence in some massive data center. But true AGI, it's already in the room. It's spread right through your local terminal windows and your local Markdown files.
Section 1. Corporate versus personal AGI.
When we pull apart Tan's thesis on this structural divide, it really all comes down to the absolute difference between the intelligence you rent and the intelligence you actually own. Corporate AGI, that's your standard $20 a month chatbot. It's totally amnesiac, it completely resets the moment you close the tab, and it lobotomizes itself on someone else's corporate schedule. Personal AGI, on the other hand, is your own infrastructure. It reads from a compounding memory bank that you own, it executes your exact procedures, and it gets smarter every single day because it learns your unique context. So what does that ownership actually yield? Well, Tan gives us his own hardcore data. Back in 2013, as a YC partner, he shipped about 14 useful lines of code a day. Today, running a personal agent, his output has multiplied by 400 times, 400x. And even if you apply the harshest penalties for things like AI code bloat or scaffolding, the absolute worst case floor is an 8x multiplier. The leverage here is just mathematically undeniable. And this data scales perfectly across the whole industry. A full 25% of the startups in the Y Combinator Winter 25 batch were operating with code bases that were 95% generated by AI agents. 95%. They are not treating AI as a glorified autocomplete. They're treating it as a literal workforce. This is exactly how massive annualized revenue is being generated by super agile teams of just 15 people. Section 2. Upgrading human working memory. To grasp exactly why this 400x leverage is mechanically possible, we have to look at a physiological bottleneck that personal AGI completely bypasses. Human working memory is strictly limited to 7 plus or minus 2 items. That is exactly why local phone numbers are 7 digits. It's your biological limit. Now, compare that to an agent's working memory. 1,000 million tokens. To put that in perspective, that's the equivalent of holding 3 complete Harry Potter books in its head simultaneously and perfectly cross-referencing them in seconds. So how in the world do you feed those million tokens? If we extract Tan's personal architecture, which he calls G-Brain, it gives us the exact blueprint. It consists of a library, which is a Markdown wiki containing 220,000 pages of his exact personal context. It perfectly diarizes 25 years of emails, notes, and decisions. This runs on a harness called G-Stack, boasting 123,000 GitHub stars, and it's all managed by a librarian agent that autonomously triages and searches this massive memory bank while he sleeps.
Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, whoa, I don't know how to code this infrastructure, Tan's framework establishes one absolute rule. Markdown is code. If you can write clear English instructions, guess what? You are a programmer. In this new physics of work, writing plain English in a simple Markdown file turns anyone, from the finance team to event staff, into a manager of a digital workforce.
But you really have to structure it correctly to avoid the most common failure point in AI systems, which is confusing your computing spaces. Latent space, which is powered by large language models, is for taste, judgment, and parsing vague requests. Deterministic space, like databases and scripts, is for hard logic, arithmetic, and SQL. If you ask an LLM to reliably track custom schedules for 6,000 people without calling a database, it's gonna fail. You absolutely must keep them separate.
Section 3. The 5-Step AI Blueprint.
So how do you actually stop renting and start building your own self-driving rocket this weekend? Here is the explicit step-by-step blueprint extracted directly from Tan's methodology. You want to follow these 5 steps relentlessly. Step 1, pick a harness, like OpenClaw or Claude Code. Step 2, start a library. Just export one folder of your raw context, like your notes or your emails. Step 3, write a skill file by giving plain English instructions for a weekly task you hate. Step 4, automate it by making it a recurring scheduled job. And finally, step 5, skillify everything. Let's pause on that crucial 5th step for a second. Skillify is the hardcore discipline that separates compounders from dabblers. The rule is totally uncompromising. You never do one-off work. If you have to ask an agent for something twice, you've failed. Every single task must be extracted into a reusable Markdown file that compounds your capability forever.
Section 4. Own your intelligence.
Bringing this blueprint back to the real world presents an urgent, uncompromising economic warning to every single knowledge worker out there. Consider Maya, a support engineer. She spends 2 years building 40 specific skill files, like exactly how to triage a massive server outage at 2 a.m. Version 1, she builds them in her own owned repo. Her judgment compounds, and she basically has the exact infrastructure to launch her own startup. Version 2, she builds them in the corporate repo. The company runs her extracted judgment forever, and when she inevitably leaves, she leaves with absolutely nothing.
This is the stark reality of the framework. As Tan puts it, every comfortable arrangement where your judgment compounds in someone else's repo is a 1,000 guilder bribe to stop building your own thing. If you sit back and let your cognition be extracted into corporate IT infrastructure, you are just accepting the modern version of Spinoza's exact bribe. Section 5. Final review and core takeaway.
All right, let's rapidly lock in the hard data and uncompromising facts we've just extracted from this blueprint. Zero fluff, just the raw numbers. We are looking at a proven 400x individual output multiplier, 95% AI-generated code bases powering the fastest-growing startups in the Winter 25 batch, a 220,000 Markdown page memory bank acting as an impenetrable personal moat, a 1 million token agent capacity, dwarfing the fragile human's 7-item limit, and a 5-step compounding blueprint to construct it all yourself.
Which brings us to today's core takeaway. Here is the underlying logic in one sentence. Personal AGI is not a product you rent. It is a compounding asset you must build to maintain control over your own cognition. Now, this brings us to a hardcore debate, and I really want to hear your exact argument on this. Is storing your entire life's context in local Markdown files a genius structural moat or a massive security liability waiting to happen? Do you believe self-custody of 25 years of data is the ultimate competitive advantage, or is it just a really dangerous risk? Drop your stance on that hardcore debate in the comments below. Seriously, I want to know what you think. When you leave a comment, we will automatically send you the complete personal AGI starter tool list and blueprint mind map so you can stop renting, start grinding your own lenses, and build your own library tonight. Thanks for joining this explainer, and I'll see you in the comments.